So welcome everybody to this. As well as it being live, I'm going to be recording it, but I'm not really looking at the camera much because I'm going to be looking at you guys. So any questions, please ask them. It's really important. So I came across this practice during the first lockdown we were in. I did a festival organized by a conscious sexuality and tantra person, and it was mostly European teachers, which was fabulous. There's a very different perspective between kind of Europe and America, which is much more, I think the European perspective is more, there's an openness in that. There's a willingness to go to a lot of different places, which seemed really beautiful. And this workshop on drooling came up, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I have no idea what this is about. And it had a really deep impact on me, the practice of it. And over time, I did it a few times for my own practice. And I have taught it a couple of times in a group space. I've taught it to quite a lot of people I work with individually, but I taught it in a couple of group places, and it was fabulous. On a workshop in Cape Town, somebody even went into a full body orgasm from this and the mouth massage practice, which was really beautiful. So it has amazing power to really take us into our bodies in a very personal, a very intimate, and a very immediate and present way. So there's quite a lot of elements to this which are really interesting. The first one is about shame. And we are shamed for an enormous amount of things, often subconsciously. So as we grow up, when you're a baby, you have no control over anything in your body. And as you grow up and you learn to control your body more, it's one of the ways that we become very socially acceptable is how we are with our body and bodily functions and bodily fluids and all sorts of things like that. And very often there's a sense of shame about a whole lot of that, about our bodily fluids, about excretion, about weeing and pooing and spitting and all sorts of things. And even when it comes to sex, very often we want it in this very neat, tidy, clean little box. And immediately afterwards we have to clean up, we have to wash up, and you can't make too much mess, and you can't make too much noise, and we can't really fully let go. So we hold on to a lot of that. And our mouths, because our mouths and our faces are so public, firstly, our mouths are incredibly intimate. And not only for kissing, but for eating, for tasting. It's the first way that we interact so much with the world is through our mouths. Even the way that we're often fed, and sometimes that's kind of force feeding when you're a baby. You have to eat. And parents spend hours kind of, playing all the games. Here's the train, here's the plane, and a lot of that is quite invasive in our mouths. Then we hold an enormous amount of emotional stuff in our mouths, so much that we haven't said, so much that we never said, so much that we didn't think we could say. Sits here, and it sits in our jaws and in our throat. We don't always know, and we're not always comfortable asking for what we want, asking for what we need, and that's a really big one for a lot of us. When it comes to sex, when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to emotion, when it comes to life, full stop, and really asking for what we want and feeling really comfortable and worthy and deserving, and so many issues around that. So a lot of that sits in our mouths, and our mouths are very connected to the rest of our body. There's a very deep connection between your mouth and your throat and your yoni and your cervix, and it's one energy system. There's a very deep connection between our mouths and anus because they're two opposite ends of the same spectrum. And anally, we all hold an enormous amount, often of fear and tension sits there. So much sits in that. And the more that we can express through our mouths, the more we allow ourselves to just let go. To just let go, to not hold anything back, to not hold anything in. And this practice of drooling takes us to that place, to just letting go. And it's such a simple thing, but we start to see how deep and how subtle we hold on to so many of these things. And in this, we start to let go. It's also deeply relaxing because we start to control our body. So the thing that stops us drooling more than anything else is swallowing. And we do that lots. And we think that that is something that's totally reflex, which it is, and it's something that we can control. So we start to have a very different relationship with our body and with aspects of our body and aspects of our physicality in terms of being able to not swallow. So it gives us a level of, we start to see what in the body we actually can influence and what we actually can control in the body. And that starts to become really interesting, of how much we do without even thinking, because we don't think about it, and how much of that we actually can impact on. And when we do that, it takes us to a presence in our body, because there's an awareness, there's a connection that's putting us inside our bodies, and inside our bodies now. So when we're in that space, we start to become very aware of what's happening in our body. So we're really feeling what's in the body. And then to maintain that relaxation. So once we go past that, and I'll explain a little bit more when we get to the actual practice of it. Once we kind of get past those first moments of that need to swallow, and we get much more into that space of relaxation with it, what very, very much happens then is the awareness and the deep relaxation of keeping us in that space. And it becomes very much a body meditation in that. So it really takes us deep inside of ourselves to this place that's very, very quiet, and of just letting ourselves be and letting ourselves flow. There's also an element of this that can be very sensual and very erotic. And that depends on how we do the practice. So to be able to have this delicious sacred saliva, and I wrote a piece a little while ago about sacred saliva, that's very much about how all of our bodily fluids are sacred, just because they're part of this divine body. And in this, if we can allow this to really just flow down our bodies and over our skin, it can be moments of incredible sensuality and eroticism within ourselves in a very, very different way. So we can actually include that in pleasuring, in self-pleasuring, and it becomes very kind of really visceral and even almost animalistic in a way, simply because of it's so primal. And as we start to open more sexually and we experience and explore sexual energy more, we start to understand the power of sound, for example. And most of us have sex very quietly, and maybe we make some noise at orgasm, but for the rest of it we're very, very quiet, because the patterning is that when we start having sex, we are generally not in a place that's really private, so we can't make too much noise. And then we become families, we become parents, so you can't make too much noise having sex because the kids are going to hear us. The more noise that we can make, the more energy there is, because sound is energy. So we start to let go even more. And when we can add an element like this, when we can add this element of our bodies and our bodily fluids in this, it can really become this very deep energy experience in so many ways. And as we do this, we start to let that shame go, because it's letting control go, and it's allowing our bodies to flow, and it's allowing what's in and from our bodies to flow. And as we free ourselves from that, we start to move into deeper pleasure possibilities, into deeper energy, into deeper relaxation. And we don't understand often the power of relaxation because it's such a simple thing. And so often we hear, just relax. And sometimes it's the worst thing anybody can tell you, especially when there's all the stress, and just relax. The more that we can relax, the more energy moves in the body. And there's a very interesting thing. To have a spiritual experience and to have a sexual energy experience, one of the things that we need is relaxation. Simply because in the space of relaxation, energy flows and energy moves. So the more that we can relax, the more energy flows. And the more we can relax, the deeper we can go, the more we can feel. And that's so important because for a lot of us, we don't feel a depth of sensation. I remember years ago writing a piece, and I said, at best we experience about 30% of the pleasure that we can. It was kind of an arbitrary number. And whether it's 30%, whether it's 50%, 60%, doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. The point is that we don't allow ourselves to experience the fullness of what we can. And a part of that is the control. Part of that is letting go. Because what happens if I really let go? And what happens if I really make all this noise? And what happens if I'm really messy and my hair goes all over the place? And what happens if I cry? And what happens if I'm drooling? And what happens if there's snot? Never mind any of the other sexual fluids. So we keep everything really neat and contained and controlled. And when we can allow ourselves to let go, we can allow ourselves to experience. And the freedom of this takes us deeper, higher into ourselves and into possibility. It's also so important in terms of the fun and play, because we look at all of this stuff very seriously, and sexual energy learning, and all of that is very, very serious. And it is, there's no question of that. And there's deep emotion sometimes, and there's deep hurt, and it is all very, very serious. But we forget about having fun. We forget about playing. And the energy of play is so important. It's so light. It's the energy of creativity. And, the framework that I work in so much is the idea of patterns. That everything that we do is from a pattern and from conditioning. And most of the patterns that we have are subconscious. Patterns in our mind, patterns in our body. And when it comes to sex, our patterns are often the deepest part of that, simply because we're not often aware of what we're doing sexually. Or simply we have sex in the way that we're used to having sex. So we do things in whatever the pattern is. We touch, we kiss, we lick, we suck, we have sex, we do it in whatever way, in whatever position. And very often we do it in the same way all the time. So when we start to go beyond the pattern, that's when we start to become aware. That's when we start to become conscious. The more we free ourselves from the patterns, the more possibilities we start to create in our bodies, with ourselves, with a partner, with others, whatever the experience might be. And as we free ourselves to experience more, a big part of that becomes the energy of creativity. So to do something different, there is creativity. And it's not always just about learning different positions and different techniques and all of that. And more when I teach, it's so much about what's underneath and what's inside that, how to connect with our hearts and how to let that flow. And some things are definitely experiences that have a protocol, like Taoist massage, for example. I shared the Taoist massage meditation a little while ago. Every time you do a Taoist massage, you do it in exactly the same way because it works. It's doing something, working with the meridians in the body, following that whole cycle, and it's a beautiful, really powerful experience. And so many of the others are simply about the more that we can connect with the heart, the more we can allow that to flow in a way that's expressing us in the moment. Where do you find yourself today? Where do you find your lover today? Where do you find your body, your desire, your sensation, your emotion? And from the space of that heart connection, we understand that it's different every day. And we don't always want the same thing, in the way that we don't always eat the same thing, and we feel like different things every day. and we wear different clothes. We might wear different styles of clothes and all sorts of things. It's not always the same. So the more that we free ourselves, the more we free ourselves to actually be with what is, with where our body is, with where our energy is. And this practice is a way to create that connection with ourselves, to allow more of that depth to happen. So what do you think about all that?
Sounds amazing. I'll have that.
Okay, so this is the first step in having that, or a step anyway. Okay, so the real thing about this is the practice, because it's something that you can talk about a lot, and we can talk about all of those different elements a lot. We can talk about shame, we can talk about guilt, we can talk about embarrassment, we can talk about freedom, we can talk about creativity, we can talk about eroticism, sensuality, energy, all of these things, but this is very much about the practice. And there are a couple of different ways of doing it, and I will share some of them with you, and you'll choose whatever is comfiest for you. The important thing in this is to be kind with yourself, to understand that it might take you a little bit of time for this to happen. So be gentle with yourself. Don't force it, because then we go into this pattern of judgment, of comparison, because she's doing it, why isn't it happening for me? And you know, in Tantra yoga practice, we talk about how comparison actually creates self-hatred. You know, that if you can lift your leg higher above your head than I can, then you're better than me. No, it just means that you can lift your leg higher than I can. That's all. So maybe your body's more supple, and that's all that it means. There's no judgment on any of it. So relax into this, and that's so important, because the more we try and force it, the more tension we create, the more stress we create, the more we move away from relaxing and flowing and allowing this to flow. So that's really, really important, to really be kind, to be gentle with yourself. So what we're going to do is that we have some lemons here, which are really help the saliva in it. Anything sour brings more saliva to your mouth, so that's just in the beginning sometimes easier to have. And the important thing then is to focus on not swallowing.
It started already.
Yes. See, so this is what happens in your body when that feeling that you need to swallow starts to come up, and you don't. Underneath that, very often, and this might not happen, but often there's a little feeling of anxiety and panic. Breathe through that. It passes, and it passes quite quickly. And if you can get past it 3 or 4 times, your body is totally going to relax and open. Okay? The important thing is to breathe deeply. And as you breathe, whatever you feel will come up. Don't try and squash it. Don't try and repress whatever it is that you feel. Just let it be there and breathe, and you'll be able to breathe through it. And as you breathe through it, you'll be able to breathe past it. And after, as I say, 3, 4, 5 times, it becomes really easy and really natural and really, really beautiful and powerful. And a couple of weeks ago, I was working with someone who was doing some really deep yoni work in a very, very high state of pleasure. And all of a sudden I was aware of my mouth being filled with saliva, and I just started to let this happen. And I didn't have a shirt on. And it became such an amazing experience of this release and this letting go, and being able to take this energy and give it back into the massage with this beautiful sensuality, this beautiful eroticism that came from nowhere. It was totally totally unexpected. And that's what kind of triggered sitting here today, because after that, so it was a practice that I actually forgot about for a while, because there are so many different practices and meditations and exercises, processes, and I hadn't done it for a while. And after that, I did a few drooling experiences, and then last week just had the inspiration to do this morning. So that's why we're here.
I just want to ask a question. You
Yes.
say, let it be natural. How is it natural when actually that reflux of wanting to swallow is natural? How is holding back?
So there was a time when it was natural.
Okay.
So let's think about a baby.
Mm-hmm.
They do that quite naturally,
Yes.
and then they kind of play with it and they have fun with it. Okay, so there was a time where it was quite natural.
Okay.
To not swallow.
Yeah. And then we do that, and it's just simply getting past that. And once you get past it, you can take your body to a state of much deeper relaxation.
Okay.
So one of the things with this to understand is that we have so much more control over things in our body than we're generally aware of. Even if they're reflexive, there is so much that we can control. And the deeper the relationship we have with our bodies, the more we can control things. So for example, during sex, one of the things that happens is your pelvic floor muscles and your anal muscles contract. Okay, that's totally, that's not conscious. You can consciously relax those contractions, which allows for a totally different experience of your body and your energy. So many things that you do, you can learn to control in your body through practice, through having a deeper relationship with that. And this is one of the ways where we can start to connect on a deeper level with the body and with ourselves. Okay, so the thing is to really allow yourself to relax into that. And if it's there and all of a sudden you swallow, don't, oh, I shouldn't have done that, that's wrong. No, relax. Breathe. Don't go into the judgment, because then it's not what happened, it's the story we give that makes it this thing that's stopping us doing this. Relax. And it'll happen in its own time. And it will flow easily, beautifully. Okay. So I suggested that you bring towels and sarongs for the following reasons. So you might want to do this without a top on. You might want to do it with no clothes on. And you might want to keep your clothes on and just kind of put a towel over there like that. However it is that you want to do it is up to you. Okay. Alright, so decide how you'd like to do this, and if you want to take some clothes off, then do that. I am going to do this without a shirt because that feels so good, but really do whatever you are comfortable with. And just because somebody else is doing something, do what is comfy for you. That's really important. Okay, so take a piece of lemon. That's quite helpful. And the lemon is going to help the saliva flow in your mouth. And when you feel that your mouth starts to fill, just as much as you can, relax and breathe. And keep that relaxed. And just focus on breathing and relaxing. keep your jaws relaxed so they're a little bit open. And you know what really makes me chuckle is I've done, as part of this journey, a lot of really bizarre, interesting things, and this is the first time I have ever drooled with a camera, which is really quite funny. So there's always something new and there's always something different. And with lots of saliva, maybe you even use your tongue a little to just kind of bring that up to the top of your lips. And keep your jaws relaxed. And that feeling of needing to swallow, just keep it relaxed. Once you get past those first moments, it becomes easy to stay in the relaxation. Keep breathing. Soften into your body. Soften into your mouth, into your throat, your tongue, the back of your throat. As that flows, be aware of what comes in your body. What comes alive, what comes awake. Is there a feeling of freedom? A release, a letting go, and allowing. Be aware of the relaxation in your mouth, jaws, and your throat. And that goes all the way through your body. And what judgment and patterning and conditioning you can release. What you can just be. feels on your skin. And if you'd like to be witnessed, if you'd like to be seen in the space, just open your eyes. Beautiful. So much vulnerability in allowing ourselves to be seen, and so much strength in that vulnerability. So swallow if you need. Let that slow down. And bring your awareness inside of yourself to feel what's in your body. It's coming to awareness. What are the feelings, the sensations? How does your skin feel? How does your mouth feel? What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your pelvis, genitals and your anus. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And if you'd like to wipe yourself or be in that natural state, anything. Beautiful. So what did you experience? What did you feel?
So when it first started to touch my skin,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to hold it back.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion came up my back, and this shame of losing control. And when it got more and it started building bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
it was so, I wanted to laugh.
Yeah.
And then I felt it cold on my skin, and that was like, ooh, ugly. There was a lot of, this is ugly. But not really, but
Mm-hmm.
more the judgment. And then I had this urge to wipe it.
Yeah.
And when you said connect to your body and feel other parts of the body that were quite contracted.
Mm. And after that?
I could let go, relax, not fully.
Okay. And what happened when you let go? What did you feel?
Out of control.
Mm-hmm. And how did that feel?
So, very interesting space.
Freeing?
Yeah. And also like, how no one sees me.
Yeah.
Not, I wouldn't show anyone.
Mm.
Maybe one person, special.
Yeah. So you see, it just shows often how much we do control and how much we do
Who
hold
doesn't want
on,
to let go.
and how much judgment and what a story we put on that. And we can't be seen in that. So if we can't fully let go into ourselves, how can we with another?
And there was also once I swallowed and then immediately, you're not good enough. And what I also realized is this, I'm too much. When it got more, I'm too much. So that was interesting too.
And that's a huge thing and especially for so many women who have been so conditioned that you can't be too much, you can't be too loud, you can't be too successful, you can't be too strong, you can't be too sexy.
Exactly.
So it's amazing how
Just
much
keep
sits.
yourself.
Yeah. And when we can really let that, then how much can there be? So how much pleasure, how much intimacy, how much connection, how much energy can we experience?
Relaxation.
How do your mouth and your face feel now?
My jaw and my,
Yeah, so soft. Yeah, even your eyes are so much more relaxed. Beautiful. So the more that you do it, the more it becomes such an opportunity. And obviously there's a lot of other practices and ways, but this is, as you do it and you start to feel into those things and you start to relax into them, so you feel where in your body's contracted and you start to relax into the contraction, you start to let it move. Beautiful. Wonderful. So you can do this anytime. You can do it as often as you like, and you can also really do it for as long as you like. You can do it in front of a mirror. Can you look at yourself in the mirror? Can you look into your own eyes while this is happening? So for the first time, I've never done it in front of a mirror, but for the first time I looked at myself in the camera doing this. You know, for me that's not such a difficult space, but it's very different to kind of, I suppose, even, you know, making one of the massage DVDs, for example, and sitting here with all the saliva drooling on my face is a little bit different and beautiful. So that's the practice of drooling. And on one hand, so simple, really is, and on the other, such possibility for us in the experience. So close your eyes for a second. Take a breath in, deep breath in, and out. And again, deep breath in. And out. And a deep, deep breath in. Slowly, slowly, slowly breathe out. Just take a moment to be in your body. Be in your heart. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes.